So hello and welcome to everyone that's joining. Thank you for your time. My name is Troy. I am from Anti-Fragile.fit. We help people get fit and become unbreakable. And I think one of the most potent tools that I've found to help people get fit and become unbreakable would be fasting. So, I recommend to all my clients to get out in nature and then also adopt some type of fasting protocol. So we'll get into fasting in just a second. And as you may know, we have a fasting group week coming up, June 1st through the 5th. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this meeting. Today, I want to share with you a little more about the ProLon Fasting Mimicking Diet. This is basically fasting with food, also known as FMD, Fasting Mimicking Diet. So I started fasting in 2011 for health and longevity reasons, and I was doing 5-day water-only fasts. I was trying to do it every 6 months, and my biggest struggle was really that mental aspect of, you get to lunch or you get to dinner and you drink water. And when I discovered ProLon about in 2019, beginning of 2019, I tried it. It was such a game changer for me because I actually had something to look forward to, and that made such a big difference, especially on day 2 and day 3. Looking forward to actually eating and still getting the benefits of fasting. So with that, I want to introduce our guests. I have Dr. James Kelley, the Science Medical Liaison for L-Nutra, the makers of ProLon. And then also Richie Mazzarella, the Director of Fitness Accounts and my direct contact with L-Nutra. So Dr. Kelley, if you don't mind, can you just give us a little background?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. So hello, I'm Dr. James Kelley. I'm the Medical Science Liaison for L-Nutra. By way of background, I'm an MD, MBA. I did my medical training with an externship in sports medicine, didn't do a residency, went straight into an MBA and focused on early stage medical innovation and entrepreneurship. And then I worked with various startups and the Cleveland Clinic Innovations Group for a couple of years, helping bring medical innovation to market. But I had done my MBA at USC about 5 years prior and had gotten to know Dr. Walter Longo, who's the head of their Longevity Institute there. And we were working on the business plan for sort of fasting clinics. Fast forward 5 years later, I get a call from him and Dr. Joseph Anton, the CEO of L-Nutra, the makers of ProLon, asking if I wanted to come on board and help launch ProLon with them. So I've been here since the very beginning in a couple different roles, and I've been a medical science liaison for the last several years. So hopefully I'm fairly knowledgeable and can probably answer some of your questions today. But that's a little bit of background on me and how I came to be associated with this. So with that, I'll step aside and let Richie introduce himself too.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Richie.
Thank you for joining. We hope we could teach you something today. My name is Richie Mazzarella. I'm the fitness account manager for L-Nutra. I'm working with Troy to try to implement a nutritional component for his followers, his fitness community. A little bit about me: I have a trainer certification. I've been working in the fitness industry for about 25 years, and I'm on my 2nd day of ProLon. And I've been fasting since 2018. I'm seeing tremendous results as I get a little bit older, and I plan on using this as a maintenance program and living longer. The company is a nutrition company, but we're also a longevity company. So without further ado, let's get into the questions.
Great. Well, thank you both again for joining us. So the first question, Dr. Kelley, can you differentiate or give us some definitions between intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, and extended fasting?
Yeah, so that's one of the most common questions we get is, why would I want to do a prolonged fast? Why wouldn't I just do an intermittent fast? And we're actually fans of intermittent fasting around here. And what we mean by that is, most people, when they say an intermittent fast, they mean time-restricted eating, which is eating for a set period of time, followed by a set period of fasting each day. Most typically, it's what they call a 12-12, where you have a 12-hour fast, usually overnight, and then you eat all your food within a 12-hour window. You can do a 16-8, where you do a 16-hour fast. Usually they skip breakfast and then start eating around 12 noon till about 8 p.m. or some variations may start with breakfast and end earlier in the day. But that's what they mean when they say intermittent fasting typically. But what it really means is just anything less than about 48 hours or 24 hours by some definition. So other versions would be the 5-2 diet or the alternate day fasting. And there's a lot of benefits to those, including things like weight loss. There's some metabolic changes some people get. But really what we look at with prolonged fasting or periodic fasting or fasting mimicking diets is over 48 hours. So between 2 and 7 days, most typically. Now, people prior to the invention of fasting mimicking diets would do pure water fasting, or in some cases, in some cultures, they would abstain from even water. But what we look at, and the reason we look at that is we picked 5 days for ProLon because of the way the body goes into a stress-resistant rejuvenative state. Takes about 48 hours to suppress the growth pathways and turn on the cellular rejuvenation or autophagy, which is cellular recycling, where your cells will look at the stuff inside of them, and if there's damaged or misfolded proteins or worn out mitochondria, they will recycle those. It's the natural cleanup mechanism for intracellular optimization that we all possess. But it takes about 48 hours in humans to activate that to kind of its peak. Most research shows that peak autophagy or cleanup occurs day 3 and 4 of a fast. So hour 48 to 96. So, and then it bleeds over into the 5th day, which is why ProLon is 5 days long. So that's what we're really looking at. So I hope that's a brief explanation of a little bit of the background for why we're here.
Yes, perfect. So in addition to that cellular cleanup, can you talk more about the other benefits you get from an extended fast over 48 hours?
Sure. So what we specifically look at is what we can validate with our published clinical trials. So one of the most common things people look at is weight loss, which I view as almost a side effect of what you're going through. But people typically lose about 5 pounds over 5 days. In our clinical trial, we had them do 3 cycles, once a month for 3 months. And what we saw over those 3 months was significant amount of weight loss, typically about 5.7 pounds. If your BMI was over 30, you lose closer to 10 pounds. I think it's like 9.7. In any case, the other things we noticed are things like, for me, the biggest benefit of a fasting mimicking diet is preservation of lean body mass. You're not going to see that as much with a water fast, but waist circumference decreases because you lose preferentially visceral fat, which is the bad, unhealthy fat that surrounds organs. You can help maintain healthy levels of a number of biomarkers, including things like systolic blood pressure. And then there's optimization of healthy aging is really where the idea came from, is looking at a particular molecule called IGF-1, which is a signaling, basically a hormone for growth. So if you eat things like protein, it'll stimulate IGF-1, which will ramp up growth. If you work out, it stimulates IGF-1, which will ramp up growth. And it helps with a lot of things like muscle tone and healing in some cases, and it can be really beneficial. But chronic high IGF-1 has been associated with more traditional aging and the health-associated issues that come with aging. So if you maintain a healthy level of IGF-1, you can kind of optimize your aging, and that's really what we're going for here. So that's one of the things we saw in our clinical trial, is sort of maintaining that IGF-1 in a healthy range that optimizes aging. You also see a number of other things. For me, one of the most powerful things is kind of an emotional and behavioral modification. And I know we're going to talk more about that later, so I don't want to spoil all of that. But there's a wide-ranging effect on the whole body when you go into a fasting state, because every cell gets the same signal to go into that stress-resistant state and sort of seek that optimization and that rejuvenation. So that's really, it's kind of for those of you who have done it, you know what I'm talking about. But the way you feel when you're done with a fast, you can tell you've gotten that cleanup. So
yes, yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch on that first. But first, I work with athletes, and every pound of body fat that you lose is less weight that's really impacting your body when you're hitting the ground, if you're running or anything like that. So that's why it's so important to get rid of, especially that visceral fat. And if you don't mind, I wanted to share I'm going to share a screenshot of just so that everyone can see that what happened in basically based on an in-body device which measures my body fat. My visceral fat, so this is the fat around your basically around your organs and your tummy area. So I was at 22. And after the 5 days, it went down to 8.4, which is huge. I mean, that's a lot less fat that's around your body, around those organs. So it's interesting that you're actually tapping into that fat versus anything other fat.
Yeah, it's sort of the emergency fuel your body's storing for the lean times, and we're just activating the lean times. So we're getting rid of the thing you don't need. And if you do repetitive cycles, you can train the body that you don't necessarily need to rejuvenate that or regenerate that fat mass, because the first time you do a 5-day fast, you're going to notice that sometimes the weight can come back on. About half of it usually returns within about a month. But by the third cycle, people are maintaining, in our clinical trials, 115 days later, so almost 4 months after their last box, they still have 64% of that weight loss. So, and that's without lifestyle changes. So they're not changing their diet between cycles. They're not changing their diet afterwards. They're only doing 3 cycles of 5-day fasting mimicking diet, and they're maintaining well over 64% of that fat loss. So the body has sort of retrained itself on what it actually needs to keep around. So that's one of the sort of really important aspects of this. And you sort of hit on the visceral fat. The other part that we really prefer about fasting mimicking diets versus water fasting, and I know I'm skipping around here a little bit, is preservation of lean body mass. Because you mentioned you work with a lot of performance athletes and people who that's important to. If you do a water fast, your body will go into a natural state for the first 2.5 days before ketosis really takes over energy production. The body's going to be looking for energy anywhere it can find it, and it finds it in 3 places: glycerin, glycogen, and amino acids. The liver has some stores of all of that. Muscles are heavily filled with glycogen for their power when they run out of sugar from the bloodstream, and they're also made of amino acids. So early on in a fast, for about 2.5 days, you're going to be cannibalizing some of that muscle mass. So you will see lean body mass decrease in a water-only fast. Now with ProLon, we have carefully and creatively designed it in a way that doesn't trigger the growth pathways, but does give the body support to provide nutrients while keeping those cells in that fasting rejuvenative state. And because of those nutrients we provide, we help preserve muscle mass, and we, in fact, in our clinical trials demonstrated maintenance of lean body mass, which is something that's very challenging to do in a fasting state. So that's one of the main plugs that are the main difference between this and water fasting. Is easier to do because we're giving you food, but also maintaining your lean body mass.
Great. Going back to the autophagy and the cellular cleanup, I have read that your organs actually shrink when you're fasting because I guess you're getting rid of those damaged cells and stuff, and then they actually regrow. Is that true?
Well, so in our clinical trials, we didn't really report that. There are some MRI evidence that you can actually measure the spleen and the liver and the heart, and they do decrease in size during the diet. Some of that may be water weight, but the majority of it appears to actually be reduction in just overall mass. So potentially very much, yes, you would see that. And then after the diet, they return to their normal size. So that is a pretty good indicator that that does occur. But again, it's at this point still a hypothesis, so more research is needed. But we do see that in animal models, and we're starting to validate that in humans as well.
Okay, perfect. So now you touched on a couple of the benefits of the ProLon Fasting Mimicking Diet. Can you kind of give us an idea of what it actually is and how it's about?
Yeah, so ProLon is a really, really interesting product based on decades of research and tens of millions of dollars of funding. But how it came about was Dr. Walter Longo, the head of Longevity Institute at the University of Southern California's Leonard Davis School of Anti-Aging Medicine, was doing research on the longest living, healthiest people on Earth. And one of the things they all had in common was that they all ate sort of a Mediterranean style diet, low in protein, et cetera. And one group in particular had a mutation in one of their growth pathways that they kind of stopped growing around 3 feet tall. But they also lived very long and healthy lives despite not having the best eating habits or behavioral lifestyle patterns. So there was something in that mutation that gave them some sort of optimization in how they aged, which would in the long run improve their health span or like their quality of years. So not just looking how long you live, but also how quality you live. And it turns out that they have a mutation in their IGF-1 pathway. They just don't respond to protein. So this is sort of the aha moment that we have, okay, protein and growth trigger traditional aging issues. So now we know that nutrition can impact how we move through life and how we optimize our aging. So this gave Dr. Longo the impetus to start looking at how we can modulate IGF-1, how we can alter how the body responds and rejuvenates based on food. And it turns out that the IGF-1 pathway isn't an on-off switch. It doesn't just any protein turns growth on. There is a threshold where if you stay below that level, you keep cells in a stress-resistant, rejuvenative fasting state. And then it turns out that you can also do the same thing with sugar and carbohydrates with other pathways like mTOR and PKA, or mechanistic target of rapamycin, or protein kinase A. If you carefully control what type and amount of macronutrients I give you, I can give you a certain amount of protein, a very specific low amount of sugar and glucose, and a actually fairly high, moderate level of complex carbohydrates, and then in addition to that, a very high level of healthy fats. And if I combine those all together in a very specific way, I can keep your cells in that stress-resistant, rejuvenative state while still providing the body with nourishment to protect the muscles and provide energy to help you get through 5 days of fasting. So what Dr. Longo figured out was using mostly plant-based, or entirely plant-based, I should say, very careful macronutrient ratios. I can give you breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, desserts, drinks in the form of Mediterranean soups, a healthy nut bar. We give you olives, kale crackers for lunch on some days in addition to the soup. We give you herbal teas. We give you, as you can see, Richie's holding up some of the food in the diet. The herbal teas to drink throughout the day based on their properties in the blue zones and potential longevity-based research. And then we also give you on some days a chocolate crisp for dessert. So as well as the L drink, which is one of the coolest components of the diet. As I mentioned, the body can use a couple different things for energy during fasting: glycerin, glycogen, and amino acids before free fatty acids and ketones take over the energy production. Well, if we give you glycerin in the L drink on day 2 through 5, once your body's glucose is kind of decreased in the bloodstream, glucagon goes up, and now you can use glycerin. I know it's a lot of G words. You can use glycerin for energy once you go into that fasting state. So we give you this L drink to give your body extra glycerin, which is sort of invisible to the sensors, but can be used for energy. So if I give you that L drink, you drink it throughout the day, and it provides your body with energy instead of using muscle tissue. So that's one of the clever tricks we do to sneak energy into the body in a way that doesn't inhibit the cleanup, but helps protect the body. So that's, in a nutshell, ProLon is just very, very high tech, real, genuine, plant-based, dairy-free, gluten-free, non-GMO food.
And it actually really does taste good. My wife did it and she really liked it. I loved it. I thought the food was great.
We worked hard on that. Thanks.
Yeah, and the olives. I've even talked to people that tried it and they don't even like olives and they really liked them. I thought they were great. Can you talk a little bit about those olives and how they're different from olives?
Yeah, so we picked very carefully. We try to source them from the blue zone region. So there's a type of, it's a Kalamata olive from Spain. Their supply chain is very heavily protected. Because they're so sought after for their properties as one of the healthiest or the potentially most interesting olive oils on the planet. They are actually escorted by armed guard from the fields directly to the places where they press them and make them into olive oil. But when they're actually just packaged in the olives, it's just 1-to-1. We directly source those. So they are some of the best olives. I actually don't care for olives myself when I'm not on the diet. When I'm on the diet, I think they're absolutely delicious. So I agree with you. They're one of the most fun parts of the diet for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely something to look forward to. And the L bars or the nut bars are really good also. I mean, they taste.
They're actually my favorite bar. It's actually a really filling snack even when you're not on the diet. We actually sell them, a version of them called the fast bar that's designed that healthy fat's going to satiate you. And it's in the same ratio as the fasting mimicking diet to help you kind of achieve your fasting goals. So, but yeah, I think the bars are one of the best parts of the diet too.
Yeah, absolutely. So other than muscle preservation, and actually being able to eat, is there any other differences between a water-only fast and FMD?
Yeah, so adherence is the big one that most people drop out of a water fast by day 2. If you've tried a water fast and gotten longer, good for you. Most people can't. So it's actually one of the main reasons we exist, is because nobody could complete the long fasting trials with Dr. Longo, so we had to figure out another way around it. But beyond adherence, there are a couple of safety issues with water fasting. One is that you're not going to be eating anything, so you're not going to be mobilizing your gallbladder. So if you have a risk for things like gallstones, that may increase during water fasting. There's just no fat or anything that would normally cause the gallbladder to move the bile inside of it. And then on top of that, you have no salt coming in. So salt is what helps you hold on to your natural water, which your blood is mostly water. So if you don't get enough salt, you're going to urinate out quite a bit of water, and you may potentially result in low blood volume and hypotension or low blood pressure. There's also issues with fatigue and hunger, and then obviously maintenance of lean body mass. You're not giving the body anything to eat besides its own muscle tissue, so you may lose that. And all of those things are mitigated by ProLon. We try to minimize the risks of a fast while giving you a lot of the same benefits as a fast. So it's sort of the best of both worlds, in our opinion.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Can you kind of talk about how this is also different from a detox or a juice cleanse? Because I'm really fascinated that people will spend hundreds of dollars on a juice cleanse, and there's really no scientific evidence. Whereas ProLon, there's 30 years worth of.
Yeah, you actually just hit on the main difference, that we have decades and tens of millions of dollars of research behind this in published peer-reviewed journals with multiple clinical trials. We have a couple more coming out in the next month or two. So one, we're putting our money where our mouth is. But beyond that, also, if you look at the science behind it, the actual logic behind juice cleanses, there's not a whole lot to it. I mean, obviously, we think it's healthy to eat a lot of greens, and there may be some benefits to juicing. A lot of studies have demonstrated electrolyte abnormalities and dehydration post-juice cleanse. A lot of people feel great during it, but that's sort of an esoteric, what does that even mean? So from a detox standpoint, if your liver and kidneys are optimally functioning, your body should already be quote unquote detoxed. Whether a juice fast or any of these other cleanses would actually trigger cellular cleanup, you need to do your homework. You need to validate that it's actually doing that. And because we've done so much research to show how narrow that window is, and how if you deviate even slightly outside of those parameters, you kick the body out of a fasting state, it's very unlikely to me that without a super controlled, mostly water fast, that you're going to get those same results. Juice cleanses tend to have way too much sugar. If you're eating purely greens, you're not going to maintain lean body mass. So there's a give and take with all of those. So it's just, until somebody has really truly validated both the safety and the outcome or efficacy, making sure that it even works, I would highly discourage. I'm not a big fan of them. I know people swear by them and they can get great results from a weight loss standpoint, but from a clinical standpoint, safety is a big concern for me. So
Sure. So talking about safety, can you talk more about, are there any dangers in fasting, and then also FMD fasting, and then also which groups should avoid fasting and FMD?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll try to answer those in order. If I forget one, let me know. So first things first, if you have an underlying medical condition, a diagnosis of any kind, or you have a prescription medication, usually those go hand in hand, you're going to want to do this under direct supervision. So it's not enough to just tell your doctor you're thinking about doing it. You actually have to get the diet from them at their recommendation. We want to make sure everybody's safe and healthy and does well on the diet. So if you guys have any questions at home about that and you want to reach out to us and double check that you're the good candidate for it, please do. We highly encourage that. My number one concern is that you have a good experience on the diet and you're safe doing it. So beyond that, there are a couple people that we generally discourage from doing it. You can't do it if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. If you are under 18 years old, if your BMI is below 18.5, because we want you to have enough body mass to be able to do well. If you don't have enough lean body, if you don't have enough visceral fat for one, your body's going to look more towards muscle, even with fasting mimicking diet. So you have to have enough body mass to do well. And then another one we're saying is an age limit. Right now, given the current status of this pandemic and what's still unknown, we have it at 65 years old. So if you're under 65, been well quarantined and generally healthy, and no one around you is sick, now is as good of time as any to do this diet. But if you're over 65, one of the things that we're sort of lacking is really good data on what happens during fasting in terms of the likelihood of getting an infection or how bad it might be. There doesn't appear to be an increase in traditional infections during ProLon that we've had reported to us. That doesn't mean it doesn't occur until we have a peer-reviewed published clinical trial demonstrating that while you are on the fast, until we show that that's safe during COVID, the people who are in the highest risk group for COVID-19, 65 and up, we discourage them from doing it. Now, healthcare professionals can obviously overrule us on it. It's their prerogative. But if you're a customer at home, we highly discourage you from doing it right now. Just sit tight while we learn more. And then your next one was.
That was it. Who should be?
All of them,
yep. Any dangers in fasting, and then also who should and shouldn't be fasting.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things we do say, okay, so while you're on the diet, a couple of things, because we want to make sure that, again, you have a good experience. One is hydration. Hydration, probably very important. If you're somebody who drinks a lot of water, you probably want to drink even more. I can't give you a specific amount because everybody's different. A lot of it depends on what you're used to. But even with our diet, their kidneys can be more efficient. They can still lose some water. So we want to make sure you're replacing that. Stay active, but don't exercise. So if you can do brisk walking, you can do gentle yoga. And we say don't exercise for a couple of reasons, and I'll get to those in a moment. But if you stay active, that's going to help you a little bit with your tone and maintain blood volume and moving around stuff and keeping you alert and active. That's pretty important to the diet. If you are feeling lightheaded, sit down, have a glass of water, or drink some of the L drink, which can give you a little bit of an energy boost. If you absolutely need a rescue, you can have 2 slices of an apple or a slice of cucumber or celery. But again, try to do without that if you can. But we say don't exercise because 1, we want you to not use up extra calories, which may drive your body to eat more muscle. Paradoxically. 2, we don't want you to be more lightheaded from it. But then 3, if you exercise to the point of fatigue and soreness, that's what releases growth hormone to help you build muscle. So that's sort of the opposite of the fasting signal. So we don't want you to kind of inactivate some of the benefits by working out too hard. So limit yourself to no more than 15 minutes of vigorous exercise per day, but definitely go walking and keep moving. So
and I think for athletes, I think it's a good time to kind of spend more time on like mobility and more regenerative exercise, and it gives you the time to take some time off and actually get those benefits of working out. It kind of strengthens that because you're giving your body the rest it needs.
That's what I think. The diet is the workout you're doing. So let the body get its rejuvenation while you're doing it. So, and then when you're done, go back to working out, and you may see some changes. A lot of people do. So hopefully you'll be one of those experiences. I, for one, noticed, and we did a post-marketing survey of thousands of our customers. And they all mentioned that mental clarity and focus are improved and energy levels are higher. So you may experience some benefits to your workout from that. So.
One question going back to the immune system. Did Dr. Longo have any? Did he do any research on the immune system actually being boosted after a certain amount of days of fasting?
Yeah, so there are some research studies out there that show that, and we have not published any peer-reviewed clinical trials on the impact in humans on the immune system. Dr. Longo has looked extensively at animal models, and we're doing research right now. And we have a trial. A lot of our trials are in pause right now. We are looking at that, but it's something that until we have a really large and confident sample size, we don't want to make a comment on. So it is exciting, and we're looking into that. But until we're really clear on it, we want to make sure that we don't say anything that we can't support. So my apologies for the obtuse answer. So
no, that's perfect. So now, what about drinking coffee or tea?
Yeah,
I guess
question.
Caffeinated coffee or tea.
Yeah, so there is a limit on caffeine, unfortunately, because one of the pathways that is involved with fasting, PKA in particular, protein kinase A, part of it is the cascade that it goes through is impacted by caffeine. So there's a limit of about 90 milligrams of caffeine per day, which is one cup of black coffee or 2 cups of 2 cups of black or green caffeinated tea, or 6 cups of decaf. Now, no cream, no sweetener. And again, maybe it may vary. There are different studies out there that show different things, but that's what we know won't impact the diet. So if you're a heavy caffeine drinker, I do encourage you to wean yourself down in the weeks ahead of time, because day 2 and 3 of the diet, when you're transitioning into a fasting state, tend to also be one of the day you would go through withdrawal from caffeine, and you don't want to go through both at the same time. It would just be too much to ask of you. So definitely wean yourself down. But if you are a big caffeine drinker, you may find that having a cup of coffee each day on the diet really does help with it. So I don't discourage that, and it can help manage some of the symptoms. In some cases, people may get a mild headache, and caffeine can certainly help with that.
Yep. I've definitely, my wife had some issues with trying to cut back on coffee. So it definitely helps to start early. And I really think anyone who drinks coffee should be doing some type of caffeine reset. And this is the perfect time to do that, because it lowers your tolerance to caffeine. And then when you reintroduce the coffee, you won't need to drink as much, and you still get
Yeah.
the positive effects from it.
Yeah, you're actually hitting on what I would consider to be, for me, the biggest reason to do that, and that's that behavioral modification. So in our surveys, people agree that it's much easier to make healthy choices. Cravings are all kind of reset, reduced to a significant level. They don't feel like they need things they needed before. It's easier to eat smaller meals, to be more conscientious about what you're eating. So it's just, in general, kind of that emotional and mental reset to how you're approaching food. So if you're using, one of the best ways to use the diet is to kind of help detox your brain and prepare you for a change in eating habits. So if you want to start a more Mediterranean style diet, this is a great way to get your kick started.
Yeah, that's actually why I wanted to do the June fasting week, because I think a lot of people want that reset right now. And I've noticed that too. I know Richie noticed how it does reset your appetite for certain foods and also how much you eat. Richie, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about what you've experienced?
I think that, this is my 6th box of ProLon in about 18 months. And what I would say to everybody is it makes you look at food differently. I'm at the point where I just don't want to feel hungry, but it doesn't have to be the best meal I've ever had in my life. The other thing I would say to you is the 5 days of non-exercise. I took a walk this morning. I'm on day 2. I just want to maintain the same times that I'm exercising, so I feel like I'm accomplishing something and not knocking myself out of my routine for too long. So I think it's really, really important that you maintain that schedule if you do exercise, but just do a little light stretching, do a little walking, and clear your mind, and all good things will happen. The 6th box, when you get into the 5th and 6th boxes, when you go on a maintenance program after you've achieved your goals, it's really more of a mental exercise, which I think is also a good thing. You're well-rounded. I think mentally, as athletes, we should be well-rounded, and if you can get through this, especially for people who have sort of fallen off the wagon, I think it's a wonderful experience for them, and it's a really great sense of accomplishment.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with that. Being an athlete myself, I've noticed that it definitely makes you a better competitor, because it mentally you could push yourself harder if you go through that. So it not only does it train your body to become healthier, but mentally it makes you healthier. Not only does it reset your cravings and how often you eat, but it also resets. You mentally see how far you can really push yourself.
Yeah. I also like what you said about the weight loss. Weight loss was not a function of my, weight loss was not one of the goals. I've never had an issue, but throughout the diet, I lost 10 pounds over the course of this time. And that's really helpful for me as a basketball player, getting a little bit older and trying to keep a 25-year-old kid in front of me. It also is easier on your joints and your knees. So, all of those runners out there, all of those people that rely on their legs to get them going, it's a really good option to get a little bit lighter and then go on a weight maintenance program. Weight loss is not an issue of mine. Weight maintenance is.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked about ProLon being you do 1 5-day fast. Dr. Kelley, you mentioned doing 3 in a row, 3 cycles. Can you talk a little bit more about how often is recommended to do? And then.
Yeah, so in general, the clinical trial was based on people with an average body mass of about 27.2. So if you fall into that category, we looked at 3 cycles in a row, meaning once a month for 3 months at the beginning of each month. So 5 days on, and then 25 days off, and then 5 more days on, and then 25 days off, and then 5 days on. So really about 2.25 months. But based on that, that's really where we see the body tend to develop what they call metabolic flexibility, where it can hold on to the benefits for longer, and it seems to adapt better, and everybody just feels more optimized. So if you're in that category, probably 3 months in a row to start with, and then reevaluate. And again, it's always a good idea to check with your healthcare professional to make sure that you're the right candidate for that. If you are under the BMI of what we were looking at of 27.2, if you're in the sort of optimal range of below 25, it's sort of up to you. I still think people benefit the most from 3 months in a row, but because our data are primarily skewed towards larger individuals, really what your goals are can vary. So we see some people elect to do it if they're in their 30s or early 40s and right where they want to be. They may elect to do it once every 4 months or even a little bit longer. Older than that, or maybe you have some different goals. Again, it's sort of subjective, but a lot of people do once every 3 to 4 months, just sort of clean things up and optimize. So
yeah, I think people are so reliant on food, or just knowing that it's right there at their fingertips at all times. Doing it even just once every 6 months is a great way to kind of show that your body doesn't need as much food as you probably take in. It kind of teaches you that, and also teaches you that you don't need to be constantly eating all the time. You can actually get away with less and still feel better than if you're constantly eating. So I think that's two things that that fasting was really taught me.
This is coming from a person also, Troy, that doesn't believe in giving anything up that they enjoy in life. You know, I mean, live your life, enjoy your life, make an effort to stay healthy, but work from the inside out. And that's what this diet does. It gives you a nice metabolic reset.
Yep, absolutely. Dr. Kelley, can you talk about how an athlete can use this to, how it impacts recovery and how they can use it with exercise, and how would you want to go about doing that if you're an athlete?
Yeah, and that's a great question that, again, we haven't done clinical trials on. We are always looking at that, and we've worked with several professional athletes and several retired athletes as well, and as well as just general weekend warriors and a lot of other people who are in tremendous shape. So we are actively exploring that. Again, we don't have, unfortunately, clinical trial data to really give a clear indicator for how to use it. A lot of people do elect to use it in the off season, just because you do want to take 5 days off from heavy training, certainly while you do this. So again, it's a conversation that you probably need to have with whoever is relevant to you to figure out what your goals are. I wish I could give you a specific regimen, but usually if you're a competitive athlete, I would encourage you to not do this within a couple weeks of an event you have. But if you want to do it in between training cycles or something like that, just to sort of put yourself in the best condition to accept the training and do well with it, that's a very prudent plan, I think, for most people. So, but again, individual goals, feel free to have your group reach out to me and I'll talk to them one-on-one. We can't really give medical advice, so it has to be very much limited to what we do know. But so again, sincere apologies for not having a clear answer for you. We are working on that, but the pandemic has sort of slowed some of our trials and some of our ad hoc studies we've been doing. So bear with us. We'll all get through it.
Sure.
Hey, Troy, the other thing I would just like to mention about that, I worked in the fitness industry and I worked in gyms for my whole life. What I would say to you is it's a really nice jumpstart to a program for somebody who's trying to become more well-rounded and get back into it. So they go on this ProLon program and they haven't been in a gym for a while or haven't exercised. It's a really nice jumpstart where they can get the effects of fasting and see some weight loss or certain things happen to them, and jump back into a workout program with being a little bit lighter,
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Richie, can you talk a little bit more about your experience using, what benefits did you see doing it? Okay.
So I started with the company in October 2018, and that was the first box that I did. I said to them, look, I love what's going on here. I want to be part of this. But I have to try the box before I accept the position, because at this point in my life, I have to believe in what I'm selling and what I'm putting in my body. So I did the first box and I saw unbelievable results. I actually was in shape before I started. So I actually had to space out my first 3 boxes a little bit longer than a typical person who is looking to accomplish different goals. But throughout the process and throughout me fasting over these last 18 months, I've lost about 10 pounds. I lost about 1.5 inches off of my waist. Where all of that typical when you get a little bit older, that typical weight, likes to hang around. And most importantly, it didn't affect any of my lean muscle mass. So I lost that 10 pounds, but it didn't affect any of my lean muscle mass. I actually shared that with you today. I shared with you my my InBody, the thing that you were showing your people. But also, I feel better. You know, I feel lighter. I feel better. I have more energy. And you know, this is super exciting for people on your fasting week. They should feel an extreme moments of clarity, and they should also feel super energetic afterwards. So those are a few of the things. But like I said, working from the inside out, younger, trying to attempt to be younger biologically so I could be around for my kids. These are the long-term goals that I have for myself that I think some other people should adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Dr. Kelley? Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience using it?
Yeah, so the first time I used it, for the first 4 days, so for those of you who do experience some of the less ideal aspects of fasting when you try 5-day fasting or ProLon, know that you have good company. The first couple days were a little rocky for me. It kind of highlighted that I probably am not eating the best diet under normal circumstances because I had a long way to go to get into the kind of optimal fasting shape, quote unquote. So day 2 and 3 was a rocky transition for me. I got a pretty bad headache, manageable but uncomfortable. Day 3 and 4, I actually got some lower body aches, which is something that we do here on occasion, and really it's associated with any type of significant calorie reduction or fasting in general. But it goes away typically. Mine did go away towards the end of day 4, but made sleeping a little uncomfortable. So I definitely didn't get great sleep on day 3 and 4. And then I woke up on day 5 and I felt the best I'd felt in years. So very, very mentally clear. Brain fog was gone. Energy levels were great. Cravings were way down. My hunger levels weren't particularly bad. It was much easier to go forward and make some really good decisions. So, and my body as a whole felt great. The second time I did it was much easier. The third, I had another rocky experience, but then 4th, 5th, and 6th times I've done it have all been, once my body's adjusted, it's been very, very easy. The last time I was on it, I was a little bored, maybe a little bit hungry, but really no other side effects. So it is certainly something that I can tell when I need to do it again. I know I'm due for another box pretty soon. I did one in January. I can start to feel that maybe it's time to do it again. So my body does kind of tell me a little bit when it just feels like it's starting to lose that kind of nutritional optimization. So, but yeah, that is mental. My favorite part is the mental feeling I get afterwards, the acuity, the focus, the clarity. So.
Yes, and that's something that you really have to experience to understand what you're talking about, because there is definitely on day 4, I think it hits around day 4, and then day 5, it's really noticeable. And then one tip that I've noticed that really helped with sleep. So now the way I do it, I've done it 4 times now, and I'm doing my 5th one June 1st. And I've noticed that if I wait until lunch and eat some food during lunch, and then at dinner time save most of the food for dinner, and actually go to bed about 2 hours after I have eaten, and usually I usually eat a nut bar at the kind of end the meal with a nut bar. I've noticed that my sleep is significantly better, and I've measured it too. Deep sleep is way higher if I go to bed with a full stomach, 2 hours.
Interesting. So one of the things that they know from a lot of other studies about fasting is that parasympathetic tone and heart rate variability both improve during fasting. So in general, even with an empty stomach, you should be getting a little bit better sleep. Now, not everybody does. Some people get a little bit of a busier feeling. So if you think about what evolutionarily, here's the theory behind it, that your body wants you to go forage and find food. So as it cleans you up, it starts to boost energy levels to go make you successful to go find that food. That's sort of a leading theory. With some people, it kind of manifests as less of a drive to go to sleep, less of that melatonin production towards the end of the day. So they just don't get as tired, or they kind of have an anxious, get to it, get busy kind of feeling that makes it hard to fall asleep. Now, obviously, eating can kind of also increase parasympathetic tone, so that may help as well. So it certainly could be that. But I definitely notice no matter when I eat my dinners, by day 3 and 4, my heart rate variability is much improved. So I actually do notice the same thing you do. I just don't. For me, it's not related to when I eat. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it is something that there's a lot of research into that field right now of recovery, eating habits, fasting in general. So
right,
more to come.
And it's interesting that you can tie it back to the evolutionary aspect of it, especially the mental clarity. I mean, that makes sense that, you know, 4 or 5 days into a fast, your body's like, you need to find food. So it almost, it forces it.
Well, yeah. And so here's the story we tell, and it all makes sense, is day one, bodies frequently go without food for 12 hours, so they don't really care. They may get hungry. In some cases, they may send you a panic signal if you're carb addicted or something like that. Even though your blood sugar is totally fine, you may feel hypoglycemic just because the body is responding to that hormone with a kind of a panic of, go find me food. And then once it kind of accepts that it's not going to get food, first it punishes you as it kind of, the brain screams that it's missing its glucose, and you get that headache or detox if you're going through it for the first time and it's a little rocky. It's trying to get you to really feel like you just go eat whatever you have lying around. Once it accepts that that's not the case, it says, okay, no new energy is coming in. I have to make sure I survive to pass on my DNA. So I need to do two things. I need to not waste energy. So I need to optimize how I'm using it. So whatever I've got inside me needs to be used efficiently. So if you have a cell that's not functioning optimally, that's older and more worn out, it rejuvenates itself through autophagy. So it's using energy more optimally. Then the other part is that it needs you to go beat your neighbor to the food so you can survive. So it boosts your energy levels and mental clarity so you can go forage better. So all of that adds up to, it takes a couple days to get that. That's why we think the energy boost happens on day 4 to 5, is saying, okay, I've done my work, you're optimized, go kill me a wildebeest or go find me a bushel of fruit. So, you know, that's the theory behind it, but it makes a lot of sense.
It sure does. Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about any tips to, I guess, maximize going through the FMD, and any tips you have?
Yeah. So again, on our trial, we actually didn't do anything to prep them. We didn't have them change their diet between cycles or afterwards. So we don't have any clear evidence that this is exactly true, but we do hear from a lot of people that the cleaner you eat ahead of time, the better. If you decrease your caffeine intake, if you increase your cruciferous greens, rooted vegetables, complex carbohydrates, reduce your protein intake, specifically if you're eating a lot of red meat, if you can reduce that the week or two prior, it's going to make the transition much easier. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Eat nutrient-dense foods so your vitamins and minerals are up, because even though we do give you supplementation during the diet of the right, what we think is useful during the diet, it's not, if you have a depleted store and you don't have a built-up reservoir, you might have some trouble. So those are all things that can help beforehand, and then during it, again, hydrate, stretch, do some yoga, do breathing exercises, go for walks. Don't be too active though, and just stick to the diet. We think even if you don't do any of that, people still have a very high success rate on the diet. That just makes your experience even better. And again, if you're a caffeine drinker, wean down ahead of time, but you can have your cup of coffee during the diet. That'll improve your experience as well.
Yeah. Can you talk more about the success rate? Is there what you found in the research?
So it's between 91 and 94% get through the diet unscathed. There are a couple people who get some various issues that they feel like they might be best discontinuing around day 3 or 4, but most people get most of the way or all the way through. 91 to 4% complete the whole diet without any issues. So it appears to be a very safe and very easy to do diet. So which again, relative to water only fasting, where I've read some studies where up to 90% of people drop out by day 2, we're pretty confident this is going to get you most of the benefits that we say it's going to based on our clinical trials.
Yeah, and you guys definitely make it easy, because each box is marked day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and it's all in there. Yep, Richie's got it right up there. And everything you need, is in that, and you can eat it all at once, or you can break it up. I mean, as long as you're eating that one box, you're good to go.
Yeah. So that's the biggest part. Don't carry anything from day 1 over to day 2, but you can eat day 1 in any order you want, as it sounds like you do. We provide a meal card that kind of gives you a clear guideline of, if you just follow this, you're going to do well. But if you want to change it up and do it a different way, and Richie's showing you the card there, we break it down, show you what to eat when, if you just want to follow something and be told what to do. If you want to do it on your own, you can do that too. Either one should work out just about the same. So,
right. And it comes with a multivitamin. Can you talk about a little more about what it actually comes with?
So it comes with, we have 2 different supplements in there. One is the NR1, which is a vegetable-based multivitamin that contains things like vitamins, minerals, and some of the nutrients that we think you'll need to help your body function without kicking it out of a fasting state. So kind of keep you in that rejuvenative state, but still provide some of the things that your body would otherwise cannibalize from itself. And they're at a ratio that we think is the right ratio for that. So you're going to see like 15% of the recommended daily allowance or 50% of the recommended daily allowance. That's intentional. So you're not eating the full amount, so you aren't going to be getting as much. And then some of the foods in the diet themselves get you back up to the rest of the way too. And then we also give you a vegan algal oil, which is omega-3 from algae. So it's like fish oil, but from a plant source. So and that's, again, to provide healthy fats. And then there's various benefits to DHA and EPA, which are in omega-3, that we think are really useful. So, but again, it's a smaller amount, very carefully measured to what we think will keep you in a fasting state. So there's sort of optimized multivitamin and supplement.
Perfect. Great. I think that pretty much answers all of my questions. Do you guys have any last comments or anything like that?
We have a great team here. Richie's here for support. I am available as well. We have a good science team with Victoria Hahn, one of my colleagues, and Dr. Will Shu, our chief medical officer, Angie Wong Wu, who runs our clinical trials. So we have a great team here. So if you have any questions or just want to talk it through before you start, feel free to reach out to us. We do try our best to be there for you guys and support you during it, because we know even though we can do anything for 5 days, some people still need a little bit of encouragement. That's very, very normal, and it's always easiest to do it as part of a group too. So I highly encourage you to participate in that as well for those of you listening at home. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've reached out multiple times, and you guys are very quick to respond. And if it requires a call, they'll send an email back, say, do you want to jump on a call and talk about this? You guys have really been great to just contact. I mean, it's very helpful. Definitely attest to that.
We try very hard, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing to help spread the good word about it. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Troy, the one thing I would say to you is for your fasting week, for your fitness community, what we can do is we can do like a bit of a Q&A on day 2 or 3 in terms of what people are experiencing while on the diet. The one thing I did want to mention to you is you're supposed to do this in 3 consecutive months, and ProLon also had a stat where there was an 88% reorder rate for the second month. So, all of that time that Professor Longo put into the box, the 10 years worth of time he spent creating the box, the 73 premium ingredients, that's the reason why people are successful. The reason why people aren't successful on diets is because they try to change their life overnight, and they'll do a 90-day program. This is 5 days. If you could just get through these 5 days, you could learn as you go in terms of what you should be eating. So I'm looking forward to supporting you any way I can in your first fasting week.
That would be great. Yeah. We'll definitely schedule some type of call 3 days, 2 or 3 days in. So for those that are listening, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you where you can go to order your kits. First, if you go to antifragile.fit/fasting week, that's where you can sign up, and you'll get emails and notifications and everything like that. So that's probably the best way to kind of sign up for it. And then to purchase the kits, if you go to antifragile.fit/store, we've got 1 and 3 boxes available. And if you go with the 3 box, you do save some money. And Rich, I think you said that there's a rebate, right?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I thought I muted myself. Yeah, there is a rebate. It expires on May 31st, meaning you have to get the rebate into the company by May 31st, but it's $50 per box. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have some of your people save a little bit of money and also get introduced to fasting, the fasting mimicking diet.
Yep, absolutely. And then if anyone is interested, so we're going to have the group fast start June 1st. And then we also have a 28-day reset group fast. And this is basically 21 days of clean eating, kind of getting you ready for the fast. So what you could do is do, and that's going to start June 8th. So what you could do is do the group fast June 1st to the 5th, and then start the 28-day group. And then we basically do 21 days of clean eating. I coach you through everything. And then we do the 5-day fast. So that's a good way to get the second cycle in. And then following at the end of the 28-day reset, we do a 21-day mindful eating challenge. And so that's 21 days of different lessons about how to mindfully eat. And then you could do your third cycle after that. So if you can purchase 28-day reset, that includes one of the kits, or you could do a three kit option, and that also includes the 28-day reset. So if anyone's interested, again, you can go to antifragile.fit/store, and we'll ship those out to you as soon as possible, and then we can get started on the group fast June 1st.
That's great, because you still have to learn how to eat after the fasting is over, right? You want to
Exactly.
this momentum that you developed over the 5 days, the weight loss and all of these great benefits, and the introduction, but you still should learn how to eat afterwards to keep this momentum going. So that's great, Troy.
Yep. Yeah, actually, so the 28 days is 21 days of clean eating, 5 days of fast, and then we talk about 2 days of how to transition to a healthier diet and a healthier lifestyle. So yeah, that's included in that. So that is everything. I think we've covered a lot. I really appreciate your time. You guys have been both very helpful.
My pleasure.
I look forward to speaking with you guys again, a couple of days into our fast. And thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Let us know what we can do to help.
Sounds good. You guys have a good weekend, and take care.
Thank you. Everyone stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.